Idaho Matters is brought to you in part by St. Luke's Pharmacy, now offering free home delivery. For daily medications or one time prescriptions, home delivery is easy to set up. It's convenient and safe. St. Luke's Pharmacy, now delivering to your doorstep. Information on how to get started at stlukesonline.org.
Family, work, school, you've got a lot going on. I'm Aisha Roscoe from NPR. We know you're busy, so we've made staying informed easy. The Boise State Public Radio mobile app is a hassle-free way to keep up with the latest news and stories. Whether you're cooking dinner, folding laundry, or just tackling your daily to-do list, staying in the know has never been so simple. Download the free Boise State Public Radio app today, so even when you're busy, you'll never miss a beat. And join me for Weekend Edition every Sunday morning from 6 to 10 on Boise State Public Radio News.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. You're listening to Idaho Matters. Every year, the East End Treatment Plant in Portland, Maine, processes millions of gallons of waste. I mean, let's just be honest and say what we're talking about. Poop through its pipes and holding tanks. But some of the pumps in the plant are 40 years old, and the plant runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it cannot shut down. A three-man team keeps all of it moving despite the aging infrastructure until a cancer-causing agent gets into the system. This is actually the setup for a new documentary, unless something goes terribly wrong. And its tagline is a buddy comedy about poop and the pursuit of making a better world. Boise's Water Renewal Services is bringing the film to the Egyptian Theater in Boise on June 3rd. So, joining us now are one of the film's producers, Justin Levy, and Boise's Water Renewal Operations Senior Manager, Ben Neidiger. I want to welcome both of you to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Justin, let me start with you. Why? Why did you do this movie? I mean, how did all of this come about?
That's a great question, and the short answer is so I'm one of the producers of the film, and our co-directors, Alex and Caitlin, were living in New York, and they had heard about the Valentine's Day tours at one of the treatment plants here that are a big draw, and they're so popular that they're always sold out, and they were never able to go. They really wanted to, and fast forward a year or two later, they moved to Portland, Maine, and the East End plant is offering tours, and they're not sold out. So they were able to go, and they just got totally hooked, more than anything else, on the people they met there, and they kept going back, and you know, started talking about making a film with the folks working there.
And Justin, tell us about the movie itself, because this is a documentary, correct? So give us the rundown of what this movie is.
Yes. So it's a documentary, and it's filmed mainly at one plant in Portland, Maine, and it takes place over the course of a year or so. And basically, what the film is doing is taking the kind of big picture issue of like aging infrastructure and looking at a small group of people that go to work every day and are tasked with making the infrastructure continue to work. And they have to bring a lot of ingenuity and also a lot of humor just to cope with the stresses of the job. And so we kind of ended up with a buddy comedy set in an unusual workplace. And things unfold that we never could have imagined, but the focus is always on the people in the plant doing the work day to day.
So, Justin, as I mentioned at the beginning of this all happens at the East End Treatment Plant in Portland, Maine. Why did you decide to focus on this particular treatment plant?
Actually, that was just because our directors, Alex and Caitlin, live in Portland, Maine, and it was their local plant, and It wasn't because this plant was particularly, good, bad, having problems, not having problems. Um, the focus for them was making a film in their community, and that's both a practical thing. They don't have to get on a
Mhm.
plane every time they want to film something. We were able to film over 100 different days over the course of the year or two that we spent filming, just because it was in their backyard.
So, Ben, let me bring you into the conversation. Tell us a little bit about Boise's wastewater system. I mean, how big is it? How much waste goes through there?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So, we have a lot of parallels to Portland, Maine. We're a pretty similar sized municipality. Portland's about the same size as us, and together at the city of Boise, we treat about 30 million gallons per day from your homes, businesses, and industry. That is discharged back to the Boise River to be utilized safely downstream for all kinds of things like environment for the fish, swimming, recreation. It's really the crown jewel of our community. And yeah, really a lot of pride goes into the work that we do in Boise.
Mm. So, Ben, do you see any potential issues with the Boise plant that come about in the documentary?
Absolutely. We see a lot of parallels for sure. It's Justin and Alex and the team did a fantastic job. I got to pre-screen the film this weekend, and it definitely made me laugh out loud a few times with some of the parallels that we experience in Boise. We're kind of running into three kind of things that are impacting us in Boise, and one of those is certainly aging infrastructure. You think about our Lander Street facility, that was our first plant built in Boise, and that's just downstream from Veterans Bridge off of State Street behind the lift. For those that are familiar with the area, that plant was built in 1950, and then we have our West Boise facility that's just down the hill from Cloverdale and Chinden Road, and that plant was built in 1976. So together, those water renewal facilities are approaching 75 and 50 years of age, and
Mm.
we have some issues with some of the infrastructure just aging out and has to be replaced. And so it's definitely a lot of parallels with the film with some of the things we experience as well.
Justin, let's talk a little bit more about the film because there are three main people that you follow: Dustin, Zach, and Jimmy. Tell us a little bit about these guys.
Sure. So, Dustin is the manager of the plant. He's a Navy veteran, and he, is in charge with keeping morale up as well as all of the practical things that he has to face on the day to day. And uh, Dustin and Jimmy are two of the other folks that work in the plant. Um, Zach's a bit more senior. Jimmy is younger, and one of the things that Jimmy's dealing with during the course of the filming is there's a series of exams that operators need to pass, and he's having a tough time um, passing this test, so he's studying for it, and Dustin is mentoring him.
Hmm.
There's a lot of mentorship that you see in the film, and there's also like one of the bigger issues that I'm sure Ben could speak to as well is um, institutional knowledge and what's lost when people who've been at these jobs for a long time are retiring, and how hard that is for newer people to come in on and fill. So we see like people passing knowledge on to each other. Um, and well, yeah, I won't give you any spoilers, so
Yeah, don't
I'll
give
leave
too
the
much
plot points
away. Yeah.
there. But thanks
But
for
Ben,
asking.
talk absolutely. So Ben, can you talk a little bit about what Justin just said, and that is institutional knowledge, and
Uh,
being able to pass that down. How important is that here in Boise, in particular, at the wastewater treatment plant?
Absolutely, it's integral to our entire operation. We saw some similarities between the film. We've lost some seasoned operators over the last 5 to 10 years, and with that institutional knowledge walking out the door, it's a tremendous loss for us. And our operations staff are the ultimate shooters, and they are they have an innate ability to determine how to fix things when they go wrong. So when that knowledge walks out the door, we have a hard time kind of taking their brain and trying to copy it before they leave, but we try and do the best we can for sure. And then another thing that touched on the film that I really resonated with me was, really that lifelong learning. Our operations staff have equipment changes, we have new processes coming online, new regulations that we have to meet, and it's just constantly trying to juggle all of those balls in the air while educating our staff. And then, like Justin mentioned, we have licensure with the state, so certainly something that resonated with us. We work continuously to try and increase our licensure throughout our teams and make sure we have the highly trained staff that's able to set us up for the future.
So, Justin, one of the things I want to talk about next is the fact that this plant in Portland, Maine cannot ever shut down. Uh, And I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, right? But I think it's something that most of us probably would never think about. So, why not? And what happens if it were to shut down?
Um, Great question. So, everything that flows through the sewer, however it gets there, whether that's rainwater, pipes in homes, pipes in businesses, it's all eventually going to a treatment plant, which is a good thing because before we had treatment plants, it was funneled, directly into the ocean or a river or, wherever it could be most conveniently dumped untreated. So one thing that's important to keep in mind is, people hear wastewater treatment plants and they might think like, oh, that's, it smells bad there. It's dirty, but they're taking all the waste and they're treating it and they're putting clean treated water back into the environment, which is incredible. So if it were to shut down, that water would be left untreated and it would either back up, causing huge issues in the plants, or it would need to be passed through and released, and you would have large amounts of pollution going
Mm.
back into the environment.
So, Ben, I'm curious what would happen then here in Boise if the wastewater treatment plant here ran into the same problem that they had in the film. And one of the things, and this is, I don't think I'm giving anything away, but this is one of those surprises that Justin said, and we couldn't have imagined this, but there's a cancer causing contaminant. And you have to shut it down to treat it. So what would Boise do if something like that were to happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something we work on our facility planning all the time, continuously. We're trying to look out at that 10 to 15-year horizon and what's coming at us in terms of regulatory or new pollutants or things like that. But Justin hit the nail on the head. If we weren't able to treat our water, it would be backing up all throughout the collection system. We have about 1,000 miles of pipe underground in Boise. It would be backing up clear throughout that system and in people's basements and restrooms, which would not be a pleasant experience. Or we would be
Mm-mm.
discharging it directly to the river untreated, which would be a very bad day for us as well. So we are looking with some of the cancer causing agents that came up in the film. That was another important part of the documentary that certainly resonated with us. It's something we're looking at. They're perfluor or polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS. So we've been looking at those in Boise as well and trying to come up with some strategies on how we address those in our system.
So, does Boise have backup plans or systems if something like this were to happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have what's called redundancy, and we have to have redundancy throughout our processes. And we kind of joke in water renewal services about having there's no such thing as a no flush Friday. So we can't tell our community you can't flush your toilets today. We can't take your water. So it's an important part for us. We have to have extra processes, extra tankage online. So when we turn things off to do some maintenance on them, um, we have to have extra processes where that water can go, and that's extremely important to us.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, can we talk about the Clean Water Act that changed how waste is treated over the last 50 years? And maybe Ben, you can start with this. I mean, why is that relevant today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's relevant today. And without that environmental movement, we were kind of ahead of the curve in Boise, with our first water renewal facility being built in 1950 with the advent of the Clean Water Act and the environmental movement in the early 70s. But we work really closely with the state of Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. We have a a wastewater discharge permit that limits how much of our pollutants can go back to the river. So that's something we're continuously working on. We have schedules of compliance, especially for pollutants, total phosphorus and temperature that we're working hard on to meet those limitations that are coming up for us.
And Justin, how big of a problem is this around the US? I mean, because, Ben mentioned that we have aging infrastructure here. Maine cannot be the only place that's having this issue.
Yeah, I mean, this is really a universal issue. I think it might be to different degrees in different places, but since the majority of plants were built as a requirement after the Clean Water Act, which was in the early 70s, so now, those are about half a century old. And there's a great line that Dustin says in the film, imagine if you're driving a car that's 50 years old and it's been driving 365 days a year, 24 hours a day since then. Just the process of maintaining it and keeping it running and on the road is a huge challenge. And this equipment in wastewater plants is much more complicated than what's in a car. So it's it's just it's an essential investment that we've kind of kicked down the road for a long time for different reasons. But we thought that part of that is just because as a society we're not that aware of how essential um, water treatment is, and why it's a good investment that we should continue to make to protect our quality of life as well as the environment more broadly.
So, Ben, Justin brings up a really good point, right? About maybe we just aren't aware of it because we don't see it. There's, in fact, a line in the movie that goes, when we're talking about infrastructure or renewal, we're talking about roads and bridges, and we never think about pipes and pumps and treatment plants. Is that true? And why? And if so, why don't we think about treatment plants?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think for us for water renewal services, we kind of joke that we're kind of like the offensive line of the football team, to use a sports analogy. We're kind of behind the scenes, and we take everything that comes down the sewer, and we treat it and do a great job of protecting public health and the environment. But it's certainly affordability is another one of our big concerns too. Like, we have all of this aging infrastructure and repairs that need to be made and new processes that need to be implemented, but we still want to maintain our affordability for our ratepayers. That's something that's really important to us as well.
Mhm.
So anybody that's been down around our Lander Street facility here in Boise, you've seen that's just a tremendous amount of construction going on. We're essentially having to build that plant from the front to the back over the last 6 or 8 years, and it'll go for several more years into the future. So it's a huge investment, and we're getting ready to kick off a project at West Boise as well. So um, it's time to pay the piper, so to speak, when it comes to some of these investments that we need to make to be able to continue to really protect the crown jewel of our community and protect public health.
So, Ben, is it also because, I mean, let's just be honest here. I mean, a lot of people don't want to talk about poop, right? It's just something that we just I mean, people get embarrassed. People get uncomfortable about it. So how do you make sure that that people understand just how critical a resource our wastewater treatment plant is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so critical, and I hope that everybody gets an opportunity to take a tour of one of our facilities. Come down to our watershed, climate and water education center, and learn all the things that we get to do. Um, and this is a really good opportunity with this documentary to really highlight some of the things that our team gets to do. Um, we have about 200 passionate, engaged professionals that are working hard in water renewal services, and you know, we don't require recognition or thanks for taking care of their poop, so to speak, but it's a really cool opportunity to highlight some of the challenges we face and the integral services that we provide.
Yeah.
We
And
really
and
hope the
Justin,
film can help to raise a little bit of visibility of this critical work that people like Ben and his coworkers are doing, and we hope that it'll be a conversation starter as well.
well, so Justin, let me talk about that a little bit because this documentary, I mean, it is a real life look at treating waste. With that said, it is really funny. And did you want to make it funny, or did it just kind of evolve to that? And I'm wondering about that because maybe it's a conversation starter because it's so funny.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right on. We very much approach our films with humor, and we love watching comedies, and we love making comedies, and in documentary, it might be less common to find funny films, but we're hoping to make more of them. And luckily, I think part of what kind of kept us in this world after we were drawn to it initially is that we did find people working in the field have a great sense of humor, and it paired well with our approach. So I don't think we could have created it if it wasn't there in the first place. So luckily, that worked out well, and I think having humor makes it a lot more of like a widely accessible film than if it was too dry.
So, Ben, you said you got a sneak peek of it, and as I mentioned, it's coming to the Egyptian Theater in Boise on June 3rd. Talk to me about, you know, that humor part of the documentary. I mean, did it draw you in? Is it something that you think, will be a conversation starter? So it kind of, so people can have those conversations without feeling uncomfortable?
Absolutely. I like I said, I laughed out loud several times during the film, and certainly resonated with me and some of the work that our team gets to do. We have plenty of poor taste poop jokes in our water renewal services, and this was right up our alley for sure. But yeah, I think that does get over the kind of that ick factor of poop is gross and it goes down the sewer and it's out of sight, out of mind, and really bringing that daylighting that and showing our public and our ratepayers, kind of all the infrastructure that goes on behind the scenes, all of our professional, engaged operators and professionals that work hard behind the scenes.
Well, Ben, I have boys, so poop jokes are normal in my house. So, but I think for a lot of people, I love the idea, and I was lucky enough to see the trailer. It is very funny, and there is something about that even when these serious issues come up, you see people's humor, and they take their job seriously but not themselves so seriously. Is that the same in Boise with folks doing these same jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. Humor helps us get through the days for sure. And it's really important to certainly have a perspective on the important work that we do, but have fun doing it too.
Mhm.
And there's a pretty tight camaraderie between our staff, and especially some of the challenges that we face at times. And when you can laugh at the end of the day and go home safely, it certainly is best for everybody. And yeah, it's a big part of our
But before
job is
I
humor. Absolutely.
before I let you go, Ben, I've got just one more quick question. How is Boise's treatment plant system holding up overall?
Yeah, we're doing great. We have quite a few investments that we still need to make, but we're well on our way at both Lander Street and West Boise. And really, how do we set up our utility for the future? And we've got some tremendous growth for those of us here in this community. So we want to be able to hand off, a great water renewal services to those folks that come behind us in 10 or 20 years and have our community set up for success. So we're doing
Well,
well.
I
We
want to
got some work to do, but we're well on our way.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for taking time to talk with us today. We've been speaking with Justin Levy. He is producer of a new documentary about a wastewater treatment plant, unless something goes terribly wrong, and Boise's renewal operations senior manager, Ben Neiniger. The city of Boise will be holding a public screening of the film on June 3rd at the Egyptian Theater in downtown Boise. And that'll do it for this episode of Idaho Matters. Make sure you check out our podcast feed because you can find more episodes of topics that might be interesting to you. And for more local news and headlines, make sure you subscribe to the Connector podcast. And if you haven't yet, could I ask you to leave us a review wherever you listen? We read every single one, and we'd love to hear from you.
Love Boise State Public Radio podcasts? They are free to enjoy, but not free to produce. If you can give, your support helps keep shows like Idaho Matters and Scandalize available to everyone. Donate now at boisestatepublicradio.org.